The main activities carried out by CMCC in the SAVEMEDCOASTS Project concern the development of criteria, guidelines and methodological approaches for the assessment of coastal vulnerability and risks related to sea level rise in Mediterranean coastal areas. We apply different tools and models for doing this, including indicators, integrated indexes, decision support systems, GIS and economic models, and applied an assessment and testing of these models at different scales and in different vulnerable case studies in the Mediterranean region, with the aim to identify hotspot risk areas related to the impacts of coastal inundation and storm surge flooding. We try to integrate in our analysis the effect of sea level rise projections and storm surge extreme events to evaluate the impacts of coastal inundation on exposed natural and human assets.
Within the SAVEMEDCOASTS Project, the Euro-Mediterranean Center for Climate Change has been involved in the Action D4, which was related to the definition and implementation of criteria for risk assessment related to the evaluation of climate change impact due to sea level rise and storm surge flooding in the Mediterranean region. In order to respond to this sound objective, we developed two different risk-based methodologies. A first one which focused on the evaluation of ecosystem services, and a second one which was devoted to the analysis of the multidimensional vulnerability of coastal area to climate change impact. So both analyses were applied to the Italian coastal area, including a 10 wide kilometer bands from the shoreline. This is an area with a high environmental value due to the multiple ecosystem and natural habitat that are located along the Italian coastline. But we have to remember that the Italian coastline is highly populated. 30% of the Italian population is located along the coastline. So we have a relevant environmental vulnerability, but also a relevant human dimension and relative vulnerability. So the first methodology focuses on the evaluation of ecosystem services, and we base the methodology on the main pillar of risk, evaluating risk as a function of hazard, exposure and vulnerability. We expand this concept of exposure, identifying the main receptor, the natural ecosystem, and we link the natural ecosystem to the ecosystem services, provision, maintenance and cultural that this ecosystem can provide. This first methodologies was linked to another methodology, the Coastal Vulnerability Index. In this case, we expand the methodology, the traditional Coastal Vulnerability Index, integrating a composite set of geophysical, environmental and socioeconomic indicators. Both methodologies highlighted that the most exposed area, the most vulnerable areas are located in the North Adriatic Sea, in the North Adriatic coast, mainly due to the high risk value linked to the hazard scenario and the extreme sea level scenario that are projected for this area.
So CMCC was involved also in the development of Action E4, where we performed the economic valuation of the direct and indirect damage occurring from coastal flooding and the case study areas that we studied. So as we know, coastal flooding is it's a big problem that we have to face. So it can cause damages also to buildings. It can stop services. And this is actually one of the innovations that we brought in this assessment, because we not only studied the direct damages, that is just the damage that occurs from the flooding itself, let's say to buildings or to assets, but we also expanded the analysis and studied which are the indirect damages that are like subsequent events from the coastal flooding. To do that, we start the first analysis with stage depth damage function to study the direct damages to assets and to buildings. And then we expanded this analysis to the whole Italian territory, using as information or as proxy the data that we got from the case studies, and studied which are going to be the indirect consequences. So, for instance, we studied which are going to be like the interruptions that we have in the economy, how the damage might flow from one region to the other, and so on. For the analysis of the economic damage that we performed here at CMCC in part of the project of the SAVEMEDCOASTS Project, we analyzed 4 different scenarios. So a combination of 2 scenarios of climate scenarios, so RCP 3.6 and RCP 8.5, and also 2 scenarios that are related to the return period of the event, of the coastal flooding event. So we analyzed the scenario that is high frequency, low damage return period, that is just 1 year of return period for the coastal flooding, and also another one that is 100 years return period, which is related to, or we can say that is a scenario that is low frequency but high damage. When we expanded our analysis to the indirect damages, and we expanded this analysis to the whole Italian territory based on the regions, we used as a modeling tool to do that the CGE model, which is the computable general equilibrium model, which we here at CMCC we have a large expertise in that.